They were the creators you clicked without thinking, the voices you trusted during meals, breakdowns, and everything in between. They built empires on likes, views, and fake charm. Fans didn't just love them, they worshipped them like saints in the church of YouTube. But behind the edits were liars, manipulators, predators. And when the truth came out, their fall wasn't shocking, it was overdue. There was a time when EDP445 could make people laugh with nothing more than a football rant or a brutally honest food review. He wasn't polished or brand friendly, that was the appeal. Loud, wild, and unapologetically crude, he thrived in a YouTube world that was becoming increasingly staged. While others obsessed over lighting and thumbnails, EDP filmed in his car, yelling about the Eagles, or reviewing fast food with nihilistic flair. His fans saw him as a rare kind of real, but by 2020, his name was being whispered for all the wrong reasons. Allegations surfaced, claiming he had messaged underage fans. At first, it looked like internet noise, blurry screenshots, forum posts, easy to dismiss. He denied everything, and his core fan base defended him. Then more screenshots appeared, chat logs, DMS, the kind you couldn't ignore. However, there was still no solid proof to take him down. He kept uploading, kept ranting, all while those rumors gathered like a storm in the distance. In April 2021, the storm hit. A vigilante group called Predator Poachers baited him with a decoy posing as a 13-year-old girl. He showed up, on camera. When confronted, his defense was bizarre. "I was just coming to get a cupcake." The 2-hour live stream left nothing to speculation. The messages were graphic. The evidence is airtight. The man who built a brand on brutal honesty was now caught in the most brutally honest way possible. YouTube deleted his channel immediately. Cameo, Patreon gone. Over 2 million subscribers wiped out. His entire presence vanished in days. But the real punishment came after the fame. He tried coming back with new names and new channels, each one reported and removed within hours. His return attempts were pitiful. The swagger was gone. He applied to food delivery jobs. Every time he was recognized, he was fired. Even a legal name change couldn't save him. His paperwork leaked online like a badge of shame. In 2023, he returned again, this time with a disturbing gimmick, a site where people could pay to insult him, $5 for a roast, $25 for something worse. It was digital humiliation sold to the very audience that once admired him. Later that year, a second sting revealed he was still messaging minors. This time, law enforcement got involved, and once again, he released a self-pitying apology video offering no accountability, just excuses, hidden likes, and disabled comments. EDP445's downfall wasn't just scandal, it was a complete moral collapse. There is no comeback from that. No redemption, no rebranding, not when the real you was the problem all along. Wilbur Soot's rise felt more like a slow crescendo than an explosion. He started on the edges of the Minecraft scene, contributing music, soft humor, and a calm demeanor that stood out in a chaotic creator space. When he joined Dream SMP, his audience grew exponentially. He didn't just play games, he wove narratives, and when he dropped music like Your New Boyfriend, it resonated on a different level. The lyrics, the tone, the awkward confidence, it felt like it came from someone who understood being human. He was thoughtful, witty, and deeply admired, but early 2024 cracked that image open. During a live stream, a fellow creator named Shelby described in detail what she claimed had happened between them behind closed doors. Her account was disturbing. She spoke of being bitten hard enough to bruise, of safe words ignored, of fear, of anxiety, of being made to feel like she was the problem for setting boundaries. When people asked for Wilbur's side, he responded on Twitter, "Everything was consensual." That one sentence, public and defensive, said everything. There was no empathy, no recognition, just a clinical dismissal. Soon after, another former partner came forward. She didn't post a lengthy video. She didn't seek attention. She simply confirmed what Shelby had said, explained why she hadn't spoken sooner. The fear wasn't of Wilbur, it was of his fan base. The story was no longer about private behavior. It was about a pattern, about control, about harm disguised as affection, about a public figure who had built his brand on softness while allegedly acting with cruelty in private. Wilbur never followed up with a proper apology. His online activity slowed, his music went quiet. The YouTube algorithm may still show his face, but the energy around his name is gone. And in the world of content creation, silence after accusation speaks louder than any denial. Linus Sebastian's empire wasn't built on personality. It was built on consistency, trust, and professionalism. Linus Tech Tips wasn't flashy, but it was reliable. When he said a product was worth buying, people believed him. For over a decade, Linus became one of the most respected figures in tech YouTube. His influence shaped buying decisions, launched companies, and educated an entire generation of tech enthusiasts. But in 2023, that reputation hit a wall. It started when a smaller channel, Gamers Nexus, released a detailed critique pointing out significant errors in Linus Tech Tips product testing. One case involved testing a $500 water block designed for a specific graphics card on the wrong hardware. The results were not just inaccurate, they were misleading, and the prototype, chip sent by a smaller company hoping for exposure was auctioned off instead of returned. The backlash was immediate, but Linus didn't run from it. In a video titled "But the Controversy Didn't End There," shortly after, a former employee named Madison publicly accused the company of ignoring serious workplace issues. She spoke about emotional strain, a lack of HR support, and a toxic environment behind the scenes. That allegation struck at a different chord. Viewers could accept a product review mistake, but a toxic company culture? That felt more personal. Linus addressed the allegations. In another video, acknowledging that LTT needed to change, he announced a third-party investigation, stepped back from his usual on-screen presence, and promised structural improvements. Unlike others who crumble under scandal, Linus faced it head-on. His subscriber count dipped but stabilized. Trust was bruised but not broken. He never pretended to be perfect, but he showed what accountability actually looks like in a digital world obsessed with perfection. LionMaker was never a mainstream name, but he had carved out a respectable place in the Minecraft community. His content was uncontroversial, his fanbase loyal, and his growth slow but steady. By 2015, he was a familiar face in the blocky world of survival games and building tutorials. Then, a video dropped from Keemstar alleging that LionMaker had solicited inappropriate photos from a minor. LionMaker's response was denial. He blamed a hacked account, claimed innocence, and insisted it was all a misunderstanding. But the internet was no longer buying that excuse. Soon after, a teenage fan came forward with her own account. She had allegedly been offered money in exchange for explicit images. Another girl known online as Paige the Panda shared messages that traced back years, beginning when she was just 14. LionMaker's defenses fell apart quickly. His attempts to threaten legal action against those speaking out only drew more attention to the case. YouTube terminated his channel, nearly 800,000 subscribers gone in a click. He tried to resurface under different names. The community found him every time. In 2018, Paige went public with everything: the messages, the manipulation, the psychological toll. Her story confirmed what people had already suspected, and LionMaker's last traces online crumbled. His name became synonymous with betrayal in a community that had once trusted him implicitly. Now, not every downfall is public. Some creators implode quietly, one decision at a time. For Blair, known online as iilluminaughtii, her downfall started with something petty, but it didn't stay that way. She made a name exposing shady organizations, MLMs, corrupt charities, and dangerous corporations. Her videos were sharp, well-researched, and confident. People respected her for digging where no one else would, and her takedowns often went viral. Then came the plagiarism accusations, not against her, but from her. In 2023, Blair accused fellow YouTuber Legal of stealing her editing style. It was a vague complaint about color-coded sticky notes and page animations. Legal responded politely, saying, "We use these assets with permission," but Blair doubled down. That's when people started looking closer. Viewers found examples of Blair copying statements from articles word for word without credit. Her content, once hailed as meticulous, was now being dissected for theft, and it didn't stop at plagiarism. Former collaborators came forward. Some were colleagues, others were friends. Their stories were eerily similar: controlling behavior, emotional manipulation, screaming matches. Her ex-boyfriend described her as vindictive, someone who would encourage harassment against those she didn't like. When the heat became unbearable, Blair uploaded an apology video, but instead of humility, she positioned herself as the real victim. She didn't apologize to Legal. She didn't acknowledge the abuse allegations. She cried on camera and tried to move on, but the internet doesn't forget. Her views dropped by 98% in a year. Collaborators cut ties, sponsors walked. Blair had gone from holding others accountable to becoming the very figure she once exposed. And when a person who builds their brand on truth gets caught in a lie, the fall is never quiet, it's catastrophic. When Nusir Yassin, better known as Nas Daily, first burst onto the scene, he felt like a global breath of fresh air. His one-minute videos zipped through cultures, countries, and causes. The format was crisp, the energy infectious, and the message always positive. "That's 1 minute, see you tomorrow" became a universal catchphrase for hope and curiosity. He traveled across continents telling stories most mainstream media ignored. Refugees, inventors, teachers, entrepreneurs, his camera gave them all a platform. His mission seemed simple: unity through storytelling. At his peak, Nas had over 13 million subscribers on Facebook alone, and his YouTube channel mirrored that reach. He created Nas Academy, promising to educate the next generation of storytellers. It was all about purpose, or so it seemed. In 2021, everything changed. He announced a partnership with a 103-year-old Filipino tattoo artist named Apo Wang Od, promising to launch a course based on her cultural knowledge. The announcement was huge, until Wang Od's family stepped in. They said she had been misled, that she didn't understand what she was signing, that the agreement was invalid. Nas responded with a statement: 40% of my team is Filipino. It was a tone-deaf defense that reduced an entire controversy to a demographic stat. It didn't address the core issue of consent. Culture was being commodified, and when called out, he pivoted to percentages. But the unraveling didn't stop there. Reports surfaced that Nas had scrapped a video about a Filipino farmer simply because he didn't didn't find it entertaining enough. The contrast between his message and his methods was starting to show. Then came the crypto endorsements. Without disclosing affiliations, Nas began promoting figures linked to shady blockchain projects. One of them was later arrested for fraud. The transparency he once championed had vanished. He tried to shift towards serious topics: religion, war, global conflict, but his takes were shallow, often offensive. In one off-camera video, he made crude remarks about Israel's politics, contradicting his later attempts to remain neutral on the Israel-Palestine issue. His comment, "I just care about money and success. I don't care what people think," circulated like wildfire. He denied ever being exploitative. He said, "This is journalism. It's just visual." But audiences weren't buying it anymore. Engagement dropped. Videos that once earned millions barely cracked six figures. Nas Daily didn't just lose viewers. He lost the moral high ground. The man who had inspired millions to think globally was now seen as a manipulator of culture, using identity for influence and outrage for profit. Haliey Welch became a viral sensation almost overnight. Her chaotic, meme-worthy personality landed her podcast clips across every corner of TikTok. Whether it was loud opinions or messy humor, she had the kind of digital magnetism that drew people in even when they weren't sure why. And then, she launched a cryptocurrency. It was called Hawk Token. Marketed as a project for the fans, it promised exclusive perks, giveaways, and even charitable donations. Haliey positioned herself, not as a businesswoman, but as the face of a fun, community-driven coin. She said, "It's just a way for us all to have some fun together." It was a disaster. The token launched, spiked, and then tanked. Investors lost money, some a lot of it. Haliey went silent. No tweets, no videos, no explanations, just vanished. She resurfaced weeks later, tearfully claiming she had been manipulated, that she trusted the wrong people. In one interview, she said, "I just wanted to build something cool with my fans. I didn't know it would turn into this." But receipts told a different story. Crypto watchdog CoffeeZilla investigated and found her name linked directly to early wallet addresses that offloaded massive amounts of Hawk Token near its peak. In his video, he revealed that Haliey's team had even staged a podcast leak to pump the coin's value before pulling out. When asked to respond, she said, "That's not the full picture," but offered no proof to counter the claims. She tried to relaunch her image through high-profile guests and collaborations, but every attempt was met with ridicule. Viewers called out inconsistencies in her story, and her credibility never recovered. Haliey's story wasn't just about a failed coin, it was about trust sold for profit. And once an audience realizes they were the product, there's no rebuilding that bond. Jake Doolittle started strong, positioning himself as the guy who stood up to internet hypocrisy. He called out scammers, grifters, and plagiarists with surgical precision. His early videos took down phony gurus, exposed stolen content, and earned him a loyal following for what felt like real digital integrity. Then he went after Ethan Klein. In a video titled "The Truth About Ethan," Jake accused the H3H3, creator of exaggerating health issues to gain sympathy. The tone was personal, angry, off balance. It didn't feel like commentary, it felt like revenge. The backlash was immediate, and Jake knew it. He took the video down and posted a tweet. "I messed up, I got too emotional, I'm sorry." For a moment, it looked like he might recover. He pivoted to a new project, a charity campaign for chronic illness. He called it his way of making amends and invited other creators to donate, saying, "Let's do something real for people who need it." But the goodwill didn't last. In another video, he publicly shamed creators who hadn't donated to his campaign. He name-dropped them, implied they didn't care, and used their silence as content. What was meant to be a noble gesture turned into a guilt trip, and people noticed. His final attempt to address everything came in a 48-minute video that rambled through justifications, tears, and vague statements about his own health. It wasn't a confession, it wasn't even an explanation, it was noise. Jake Doolittle wasn't undone by a single mistake. He was undone by ego, by the need to always be right, by forgetting that accountability isn't something you demand from others while exempting yourself. Maurice Barnett, better known as Blasphemous HD, was once one of the biggest reaction YouTubers online. His content wasn't just entertaining, it was insightful, funny, and at times, surprisingly personal. His fanbase trusted him not just to react to memes or anime, but to give thoughtful takes with heart. But behind the scenes, his life was unraveling. It started with a cheating scandal. He admitted to infidelity in a YouTube livestream, but instead of accepting responsibility, he blamed his partner's mental health, saying, "She was depressed all the time, I needed something else." The statement was jarring. It turned what should have been an apology into justification. Then came the fallout from his inner circle. Former friends and collaborators accused Maurice of emotional manipulation, underpayment, and inappropriate behavior toward younger fans. They released screenshots, messages, and timelines. One former colleague said, "We were afraid to call him out because he could destroy us." He tried to spin the scandal into content, uploading reaction videos to the drama about himself. He even created merch lines poking fun at the situation. When asked in a video if he felt bad, he said, "I mean, yeah, but I've got bills to pay." That honesty wasn't refreshing, it was damning. His main channel was eventually terminated after repeated copyright strikes and violations related to hate speech. He started new ones, but the viewership never returned. Videos that once pulled in millions now struggled to cross 10,000. It was the final confirmation that Maurice hadn't just fallen off. He had chosen to burn every every bridge on the way down. He still uploads quietly to a dwindling base of remaining fans, but the impact is gone. The community he once energized now remembers him for everything he tried to hide behind a reaction screen. Colleen Ballinger didn't just have a fan base, she had a cult following. Her alter ego, Miranda Sings, was deliberately awkward, tone-deaf, and self-absorbed. It was satire, but smart satire, the kind that skewered YouTube fame while becoming famous on YouTube. By the mid-2010s, Colleen had turned a character born from a joke into a global brand. She went on tour, wrote a best-selling book, and even landed a Netflix series, Haters Back Off. Her viewers included children, teenagers, and adults. She bridged audiences few creators could. On camera, she was self-deprecating and silly. Off camera, she leaned into the image of the loving, grateful performer who'd never forget where she came from. But in 2020, fans started talking. A former fan, Adam McIntyre, who was a teenager at the time, published a video explaining his past relationship with Colleen, how she'd sent him inappropriate messages, gave him access to her social media, and once mailed him underwear as a joke. When asked about the incident in interviews, Colleen admitted to it, but brushed it off as playful. "It was just a silly thing we did. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously." But the apology didn't land. It wasn't just the underwear, it was the boundary crossing. She had blurred the line between adult and teen, creator and fan, and when called out, acted as if everyone else was overreacting. Over time, more stories surfaced. Young fans who had been invited into private group chats, conversations that got too personal, behavior that felt manipulative. Colleen stayed quiet for months, until June 2023. That's when she uploaded a video, but it wasn't an apology. It was a ukulele song. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, she strummed chords while singing. "Some people are saying things about me that aren't true, and I'm not gonna take it anymore." The video was immediately ratioed. Viewers called it manipulative, narcissistic, and surreal. It didn't acknowledge specific allegations. It didn't express remorse. It was framed as her side of the story, but delivered through a melody. The fallout was swift. She was dropped by her talent agency. Tours were cancelled. Podcast sponsors pulled out. A Reddit armor she had done years earlier resurfaced, where she joked about underage fans and made uncomfortable remarks. Everything that once looked quirky now looked calculated. The Miranda mask had slipped, and underneath wasn't just Colleen, but someone incapable of understanding the weight of what she'd done. She never posted a follow-up apology, never addressed the core issue, why so many of her closest young fans were made to feel complicit in her online persona. Colleen Ballinger had once been YouTube's musical comic relief, but by the time the spotlight turned back on her, she had nothing to sing but denial. Some groomed kids, others scammed millions, but every fall was rooted in ego, greed, and betrayal. They smiled into cameras while lying through their teeth. Fame hid the truth, money fueled the mask, and when it slipped, it was ugly. Your favorite YouTuber might not be a hero, just a predator hiding in plain sight.